It's 2 a.m. and you are crying in your kitchen. Not the good kind of crying, the ugly kind. The kind with sounds in it you didn't authorize. You are standing there in a t-shirt you've owned since high school, holding a spoon, for reasons that made sense 4 minutes ago and now do not. And your dog comes in. He doesn't do anything. That's the part. He doesn't wag. He doesn't bring a toy. He doesn't perform the little tap dance of joy he performs when you so much as pick up a set of keys. He just walks in, sits down about 2 feet away and looks at you. And then he sighs. An enormous, put-upon, world-weary sigh, like a man who has seen things. And then he stays. So here's the question nobody actually asks properly. Did he know? Did he look at you and think, she's sad? Or did something much stranger happen? Something that isn't knowing at all? Something that's arguably 100 times weirder and nobody talks about it because it doesn't fit on a mug? Because I'll tell you right now, the honest scientific answer to do animals know when you're sad is probably no. And the reason it's no is so much better than yes. Let's go. Let's start with a distinction that basically the entire internet gets wrong. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are 2 completely different things happening when a creature responds to your pain, and science treats them as different continents. The first is empathy. Empathy means I look at you, I recognize that you are a separate being with a separate inside, I model what's happening in there, and I understand that your state is yours and not mine. That's a heavy cognitive lift. That requires a theory of other minds. That requires knowing you have an interior in the first place. The second is emotional contagion. Emotional contagion means I don't model anything. I don't reason. Your state simply enters my body and becomes my state. There's no gap between you and me for the information to cross. There's no interpretation, no assessment, no little committee meeting in the brain. It's not that I understand you're sad. It's that I catch it. Like a cold. Now, for about 70 years, contagion was the boring answer. It was the deflation. If a scientist said, that's just emotional contagion, what they meant was, calm down. It's not real. Nothing meaningful is occurring. Contagion was the polite way to say the animal is a machine with a fever. And then people actually started measuring it. And it turns out emotional contagion is not the small answer. It might be the entire architecture that empathy is built on top of. And that changes what's happening in your kitchen at 2 a.m. completely. Because your dog is not observing your sadness. Your dog is absorbing it. Let's talk about rats. I promise this goes somewhere. In 2011, Inbal Ben-Ami Bartal and her colleagues at the University of Chicago ran an experiment so simple it's almost rude. They took a rat and put it in an open arena. In the middle of that arena, they put a small transparent restrainer with another rat trapped inside. The trapped rat couldn't get out on its own. The free rat could hear it, smell it, see it. And the restrainer had a door that could only be opened from the outside, with a maneuver that took effort and repetition to figure out. There was no reward, no food, no trained cue, no researcher going, good boy, nothing. The free rats learned to open it, over and over across days, faster each time. They freed the other rat for absolutely no benefit whatsoever. But here's the detail that ruins you. The researchers ran a version where the free rat had 2 containers. One with a trapped rat, one with a pile of chocolate chips, which, if you're unfamiliar with rats, is roughly the rat equivalent of an unlocked Ferrari. The rats opened both, and on average, they didn't eat all the chocolate first. They opened the trapped rat's door at roughly the same rate, and then, this is the part, they frequently left chocolate for the other rat. They shared it with an individual who had just been suffering and who they had just released. Now, do I think a rat sat there and thought, my colleague is experiencing distress and equity demands I reserve confectionery? No, absolutely not. Nobody serious thinks that. What likely happened is far stranger. The trapped rat's distress got into the free rat. The free rat felt bad, and the only available action that made that bad feeling stop was opening the door. It didn't help because it understood. It helped because it was suffering too, and the exit from its own suffering ran directly through yours. Let that sit for a second. Because if that's the mechanism, then compassion isn't a noble decision made from a safe distance. It's an escape route from your own contagion, and it appears everywhere. Once you know what to look for, the fingerprints of contagion are on basically every animal we've bothered to study. Chickens. In 2011, Joanne Edgar's team at the University of Bristol exposed chicks to a mild puff of air. Harmless, but startling. The mother hens weren't touched at all. They just watched. And the hens' heart rates changed. Their eye temperature dropped, which is a physiological stress signature. They increased alert vocalizations toward their chicks. Their bodies ran the stress response for an event that didn't happen to them. Pigs. Researchers in the Netherlands showed that pigs who simply witnessed other pigs anticipating something unpleasant began showing the stress behavior themselves, ear position, tail position, freezing, without any exposure to the actual event. And when pigs watched other pigs anticipating something good, they got playful. It ran both directions. Joy is contagious in a barn. Mice will show heightened pain sensitivity just from watching a familiar mouse in pain. Familiar, not stranger. The effect requires the relationship. Goats, and I love this one, will read the difference between a photograph of a smiling human face and an angry one, and preferentially approach the smiling one. And these are animals we bred for milk and mild chaos, not for emotional labor. None of this fits the machine model, but none of it fits the greeting card model either. This isn't sweet. This is a nervous system with no firewall. And you live with a domesticated apex example of this, and you named him something like Biscuit. Okay, here's where it gets genuinely strange. In 2019, Lena Roth's team at Linköping University in Sweden published something in Scientific Reports that I think about more than is reasonable. They studied dogs and their owners, not their behavior, their hair, because cortisol, the stress hormone, deposits into hair as it grows, which means a strand of hair is a timeline. It's a slow, honest recording of months of stress that no one can perform, exaggerate, or hide. It doesn't care how you were feeling during the survey. So they took hair from the owners and fur from the dogs and compared the long-term cortisol levels. They matched. Not the dog's personality, not the dog's training, not how much exercise the dog got. The strongest predictor of a dog's long-term stress hormone levels was the owner's personality and long-term stress levels. The dogs were synchronizing to the humans across months, and the direction ran from human to dog, not the other way around. Read that again. Your emotional life is being written into your dog's body on a timescale of seasons. That's not, he knows when you're sad. That's not a moment of recognition on a Tuesday. That's your entire year of grief, quietly downloading into an animal who has no idea what a mortgage is, who cannot leave, who did not consent, and who is going to sit next to you through all of it anyway. Some of you are having a rough time with that sentence. Yeah, me too. Now let's pause and give the skeptic the floor, because the objection here is a good one, and it deserves respect. You could argue that none of this requires any inner life at all. Cortisol synchrony, shared environment. Loud house, stressed dog, stressed human. Same weather, same result. No mind reading needed. The rats? Maybe the trapped rat's alarm calls are just aversive noise, and the free rat opened the door the way you'd cross a room to turn off a smoke alarm. Not compassion, annoyance. And honestly, that's fair. That's a real hypothesis, and it explains part of the data. Except, the rats didn't free a stuffed toy rat. They didn't free an empty restrainer. In several versions, they preferentially freed rats they were socially familiar with, and, here's the part that breaks the annoyance theory, rats raised alongside a different strain would free that strain, while rats with no such history often wouldn't. If it were just noise cancellation, noise is noise. It's not noise, it's relationship dependent. The signal has to be from someone who counts, and a smoke alarm doesn't get chocolate. The skeptic's version explains the mechanism. It doesn't explain the targeting. And targeting is where the mind hides. Now let's go one level deeper, into the thing that ties it all together. In 2015, Takafumi Kikusui's team in Japan published a study in Science that I'd argue is one of the most quietly radical papers in the whole field. They measured oxytocin in dogs and their owners before and after a 30-minute interaction. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone, the one that spikes between a human mother and her infant and effectively glues them together. What they found was a loop. When the dog gazed at the owner's oxytocin went up. When the owner's oxytocin went up, they touched and talked to the dog more. When they did that, the dog's oxytocin went up, which made the dog gaze more, which raised the owner's oxytocin, around and around. Then they gave dogs a dose of oxytocin nasally, and the female dogs gazed more, and the owner's oxytocin rose even though the owners got nothing and knew nothing. Then they ran the whole thing with hand-raised wolves. No loop, nothing. The wolves wouldn't hold the gaze. The circuit didn't close. So what does that mean? It means that at some point in the last 15,000 years, dogs did not learn to understand us. They did something far more invasive. They hacked their way into a hormonal circuit that evolution built for parents and infants, and they installed themselves inside it. Your dog is not your friend. Your dog is running your baby software. And that's why he's in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Not because he assessed the situation, because a 15,000-year-old loop closed and pulled him in. Now here's the uncomfortable part, and this is the part the feel-good compilations will never, ever touch. If contagion is the mechanism, then it doesn't have an off switch, and it doesn't come with a sense of proportion. Dogs of chronically anxious owners show more behavioral problems. Dogs in homes with high conflict show elevated stress markers. The same open channel that lets your dog find you in the dark also means there is no version of this where he gets to opt out of your depression. He can't go for a walk to clear his head. He can't call someone. He can't decide this one isn't his to carry. He has no distance from you, because distance is exactly the thing empathy provides and contagion does not. We frame this as loyalty, as devotion. He's always there for me. But part of the reason he's always there is that he physically cannot be anywhere else. The wall you would need to be somewhere else was never built. And there's a second edge. Contagion is dumb. It doesn't ask if the fear is warranted. So a dog will inherit a phobia from you it has no reason to have, of thunderstorms, of the vet, of a specific person. Not because anything bad ever happened to it, but because your body told its body something bad was happening, and its body believed you. Unconditionally, every time. Unconditional love has always been marketed as the good news. It's also a description of an animal with no immune system. Let's zoom all the way out and ask the evolutionary question, because it makes the whole thing click. Why would contagion exist at all? Why would evolution build a nervous system with the doors left open? Because in a group, the fastest way to survive a threat is to not wait for the evidence. If one gazelle's body goes into alarm and yours copies it instantly, no reasoning required, no confirmation, you both live. The individual who stops to independently verify the lion is a story that ends there. Contagion isn't a bug in social life. It's the original nervous system of the group. It's how a herd becomes a single organism. And empathy, the fancy version, the modeling, the theory of mind, appears to be a later, thinner layer built on top of that ancient plumbing, a refinement, a regulator. Which means when your dog catches your sadness with no filter, he isn't failing to be empathetic. He's running the original. He's doing the oldest social act there is, the one that predates language and faces and species. Something in the group is in danger. Copy it. Move toward it. Don't ask why. So, do animals know when you're sad? Almost certainly not. Not the way you mean. There is probably no moment where a concept forms, no little label, no word, nothing that resembles the sentence "she's sad." Here's what happens instead. Your state leaves your body, in your chemistry, in your posture, in the rhythm of your breath, in the sounds you make that you don't know you're making, and it enters his, and it becomes his. There's no translation step because there's no gap to translate across. The rats felt it and opened the door. The hens felt it, and their hearts changed for a puff of air that never touched them. The pigs felt it and froze in a barn where nothing happened. The dogs felt it, And it wrote itself into their hair month after month, a record of your year in a body that isn't yours. He didn't know you were sad. He was sad because you were. That was the whole mechanism. And I think that's why nothing anyone says at 2 a.m. ever works, and why the dog does. Because people understand you from over there. They stand at a safe distance, in possession of their own separate weather, and they deploy comfort at you. They know. Knowing is what makes them useless. He's not comforting you. He's not managing you. He has no strategy. He is simply in it, with you, at full volume, with no wall, having caught the whole thing directly, because that is the only way his body knows how to be near yours. He came into the kitchen because he had no choice. That's not a lesser version of love. That's the one it was built out of.